Dear students, this is lecture number 28 in supply chain management. Let us discuss the questions of the last lecture. The first question is differentiate between third party logistics and fourth party logistics provider, 3PL and 4PL provider. The third party logistics provider focus on any one or more functions of supply chain management like transportation, warehousing, or information like that. But fourth party logistics provider targets the management of the entire process in supply chain management. The second question is in Vicray actions, the contract is assigned to the lowest bidder but at the price quoted by the dash. The answer is second lowest bidder. We already discussed this concept is applied to safeguard the lowest bidder in terms of price. Third question, the difference between values of the buyer and seller is referred to as the dash. The answer is bargaining surplus. Let us discuss the topic contracts, risk sharing, and supply chain performance. First, let us see what is a contract. Contract is a written agreement between manufacturer and supplier for supplying the finished products or raw materials or components or delivering a particular service. The contract includes all the terms and conditions of this exchange process and it is legally valid one. A supply contract specifies various parameters governing the buyer-supplier relationship. Here, buyer means manufacturer because manufacturer he buys finished products or raw materials or particular kind of service from the supplier. In addition to making the terms of buyer and supplier relationship explicit, that is clearly specified, contracts have significant impact on the behavior and performance of all stages in a supply chain because the relationship between the manufacturer and supplier is purely based on this contract. Contracts should be designed to facilitate desirable supply chain outcomes by growing the supply chain surplus and minimizing actions that hurt performance. That means contract should be clearly written so that it should include the desirable outcome of supply chain management, mainly focusing on increasing the supply chain surplus, nothing but profit. Profit for both manufacturer and supplier or buyer and supplier, and also minimizing the actions that will reduce the performance of the supply chain management system. A manager should ask the following three questions before designing a supply chain contract. The first question is how will the contract affect the firm's profits and total supply chain profits? So, the manager should visualize what will be the impact of the statements of this contract in the profit of the supply chain system. The second question is will the incentives in the contract introduce any information distortion? That means any statements in the contract introduces any change or alteration in the statement made in the same contract in different places. So we have to see that any disturbance or any alteration takes place in the contract itself. Third one, how will the contract influence supplier performance along key performance measures? So next we should see how this contract will have impact on the performance of the supplier and also the performance measures of supply chain system. Contracts for product availability and supply chain profits. Independent actions taken by two parties in a supply chain often result in profits that are lower than those that could be achieved if the supply chain were to coordinate its action with a common objective of maximizing supply chain profits. Let us see what is the meaning of this statement. There are two parties involved in this process. That is, one is manufacturer, another one is supplier. So both are involved in the supply chain system. Both are working towards getting more profits in their business or in their task, whatever it is. If the two parties, that is manufacturer and supplier, working independently in increasing their profits, they will get some profit, but it will be lesser than if they work together with some coordination to achieve a common objective of maximizing supply chain profits. So, what is the essence of this statement? If the two parties work together with a higher coordination, they will get more profit than if they work independently on maximizing their profit. So both the parties have to work together with a very higher level of coordination so that they can achieve the common objective of maximizing the profit. To improve overall profits, the supplier must design a contract that encourages the buyer to purchase more and increase the level of product availability. This requires the supplier to share in some of the buyer's demand uncertainty. That is, the supplier should design a contract in such a way that buyer will have the tendency to purchase more and more so that the product availability will be better. Three contracts that increase overall profits by making the supplier share in some of the buyer's demand uncertainty are given below. The first one is buyback or return contract. Second one is revenue sharing contract. Third one is quantity flexibility contract. So we will be discussing all these three kinds of contracts in the coming slides. The first one is buyback contracts. A buyback or returns clause in a contract allows a retailer to return unsold inventory up to a specified amount at an agreed upon price. In the contract itself, the supplier will specify the terms of buyback. That means if the products are not sold or if the products are not in a usable conditions or whatever it is, they will get back the products at a particular price. So, in a buyback contract, the manufacturer specifies a wholesale price C along with a buyback price B at which the retailer can return any unsold units at the end of the season. That means they will supply at the particular price, wholesale price C, but at the same time they will specify due to any reasons if the product is not sold or not in usable condition, we will get back the products but at the price of B. Mostly the B will be lesser than C. Next one is revenue sharing contracts. In revenue sharing contracts, the manufacturer charges the retailer a low wholesale price C and shares a fraction F of the retailer's revenue. That is, in this method, the manufacturer charges a very low wholesale price and so they share only very small fraction of the retailer's revenue, but no returns are allowed. But still, the lower wholesale price decreases the cost to the retailer even in case of overstock. So the retailer will not worry about the overstock. He will increase the level of product availability resulting in higher profits for both the manufacturer and the retailer. This is one type of contract where the revenue is shared between both manufacturer and the retailer. The third one is quantity flexibility contracts. Under quantity flexibility contracts, the manufacturer allows the retailer to change the quantity ordered, but of course within a certain limit after observing demand. So, in this method, the manufacturer gives flexibility to the retailer so that he can change the quantity ordered after observing the demand for the particular product, but of course within a certain maximum limit. Next point is contracts to coordinate supply chain cost. Differences in cost at the buyer and supplier also lead to decisions that increase total supply chain cost. The buyer decides on its optimal lot size based on its fixed cost per lot and the cost of holding inventory. Here, the lot means it may be in hundreds or thousands or in terms of bulk items. So, the buyer decides what is the optimal lot size for the company based on the various factors. So, the buyer does not consider the supplier cost. So, the buyer does not account for the supplier cost. If the supplier has a high fixed cost per lot, the optimal lot size for the buyer increases total cost for the supplier and the supply chain. So here lot specifies the number ordered at a particular stretch. The number may be in terms of hundreds or thousands or lakhs, depends upon the value of the product, size of the product, and other various factors like market conditions, etc. So buyer decides what is the optimal lot size for the company, but that lot size may not be suitable for the supplier to do it effectively. So supplier may have a different lot size, so that what happens, the high fixed cost per lot. So due to that, what happens, the total cost for the supply chain will also increase. In such a situation, the supplier can use quantity discount contract to encourage a buyer to order in lot sizes that minimize total cost. That means the supplier can give some quantity discount. That means if you order in terms of lakhs, the price will be reduced like that. Or if you order in terms of lakhs, so many items will be given at free of cost, something like that. So that what happens, both will come to a conclusion or agree for the particular lot size which is suitable for both the manufacturer and the supplier. The objective of such a contract is to encourage the retailer to buy in larger lot sizes that lower the cost for supplier and also the entire supply chain. The next point is contracts to increase agent effort. In many supply chains, agents act on behalf of a principal, and the agent's efforts affect the reward for the principal. For example, consider a car dealer, that is agent, who is selling cars for Chrysler. He is the principal. The dealer also sells cars of other brands. So every month the dealer allocates sales effort in terms of advertising promotions for all brands it sells and the used cars. That means the dealer sells different brands of cars, so it puts its efforts for all brands of cars, because the aim of the dealer is to earn more profit by selling more cars of any brand. So earnings for Chrysler are based on sale of its brand only, which in turn are affected by the effort given by the dealer. But the Chrysler company its profit is based only on sale of its own brand cars. Sales can be observed directly, but we cannot measure the effort from the dealer. So, given double marginalization, that means earning from different industries of same type. That is, the dealer is selling different brands of cars. So, the dealer always exerts less effort than is optimal from the perspective of Chrysler and the supply chain. So, dealer actually he puts effort for selling the particular brand, but his effort is applicable for all kinds of brands. So if Chrysler wants to increase their sales, the Chrysler must offer an incentive contract that encourages the dealer to increase the effort for Chrysler brand. That means Chrysler should give incentive in terms of, for example, if you sell this many number of cars, this will be the bonus for the dealer, or you will be given one car free if you sell 50 cars. So, like that, some kinds of incentive should be announced to the dealer so that dealer will put more efforts to sell the particular brand. This is called contracts to increase agent effort. Contracts to induce performance improvement. In many instances, a buyer wants performance improvement from a supplier that has little incentive to do so. That means manufacturer or buyer always wants to improve the performance of the supplier, but directly they cannot give incentive for this particular purpose. Even if they are able to give incentive, but it may not be sufficient enough to motivate the supplier to improve the performance. So a buyer with sufficient power in the supply chain may be able to force the supplier to comply. That means if the manufacturer is the uh, in the industry, suppose he is the leading company in the industry like that, they may be able to force the supplier to comply with the performance. But sometimes a manufacturer or buyer without sufficient power requires an appropriate contract to induce the supplier to improve performance. If a manufacturer is not having that much market share or power in the market, so they have to provide some kind of contract to induce the supplier to improve the performance. Even for a powerful buyer, an appropriate contract designed to encourage supplier cooperation results in a better outcome. So, whatever it may be, the manufacturer or buyer should have a appropriate contract so that it encourages the supplier to do better in performance and also to, ex- to extend their cooperation for the company to the fullest capacity. The next stage in sourcing process is design collaboration. Two statistics highlight the importance of design collaboration between a manufacturer and a suppliers. The first one is today typically 50 to 70 percentage of the spending at a manufacturer comes from procurement compared to only 20% several decades ago. The meaning of this statistics is nowadays manufacturers mostly spend on procuring raw materials or components or finished products or any kind of service which comes to the maximum 70% when compared to 20% 10 years ago. Second, it is generally accepted that about 80% of the cost of a purchased part is fixed during the design stage. That means the cost is designed during the design stage itself. So, based on these two statistics, the design collaboration is very important in supply chain management in deciding the effectiveness of total supply chain system. So, it is crucial for a manufacturer to collaborate with suppliers during the design stage itself if product costs are to be kept low. The manufacturers and suppliers, if they collaboratively design the product, then certainly the product cost will be very low. The design collaboration can lower the cost of purchased material and also lower logistics and manufacturing cost. So during the design itself, they can decide the raw material to be purchased and also they can plan for logistics and manufacturing. So all these costs will be kept low. Design collaboration is also important for a company trying to provide variety and customization because product variety and customization has to start from the design stage itself. Otherwise, failure to do so and doing it later can significantly raise the cost of variety and customization. When the manufacturers working with suppliers from the design stage itself, they can speed up product development time significantly. This is very important in this era because product life cycles are shrinking, that is reducing, and bringing a product to market before the competition offers a significant advantage. In every business or product manufacturing, there are so many competitors are involved in that particular business. So it is very important to bring the product to the market before the competitors to exploit the advantage of getting more and more customers. Finally, integrating the supplier into the design space allows the manufacturer to focus on system integration, resulting in a higher quality product at a lower cost. Because manufacturers are getting the components or partly finished products from several suppliers, then finally they have to integrate the system effectively to bring a product with a high quality at a lower cost. The next stage in sourcing process is procurement process. Once suppliers have been selected, contracts are in place, and product has been designed, the buyer and suppliers engage in procurement transactions that begin with the buyer placing the order and end with the buyer receiving and paying for the order. So, as we have discussed in the sequence, we have to select the supplier based on various factors, including the price and other factors involved in supply chain system. Then establish the contract with the suppliers. The next one is design collaboration. That means manufacturer and suppliers collaboratively design the product. Finally, the buyer places the order. Means manufacturer places the order with the supplier for procuring the products. Then supplier will supply the products as per the order. After getting the products, the manufacturer will pay the amount for the order. In designing the procurement process, it is important to consider goods that the process will be used to purchase. So, in designing the procurement process, we have to consider the nature of goods that is going to be purchased from the supplier. There are two main categories of purchased goods: direct and indirect materials. Direct materials are components used to make finished goods. For example, for a PC manufacturer, memory chips, hard disk, CD drive are direct materials. Indirect materials are goods used to support the operation of a firm. For example, personal computers are indirect materials for an automobile or automotive manufacturer. All procurement process within a company relate to the purchase of direct and indirect materials. That means direct materials are used in production of the finished good. Indirect materials are supporting the process or operations of a firm. Knowing the importance of direct materials, the company should pay more attention to the procurement of direct materials, because given the direct link to production, the procurement process for direct materials should be designed to ensure that components are available in the right place, in the right quantity, and at the right time. For example, we have discussed PC manufacturer. The direct materials are hard drive, memory chips, CD drive, etc. Even if one component is not available, the final production of personal computers will be delayed. So, the procurement process for direct materials should be given due weightage. The primary goal of the procurement process for direct materials is to coordinate the entire supply chain and ensure matching of supply and demand. As we have discussed now, even if one direct material is not available in time, the total process will be delayed, and also it affects the supply and demand in the supply chain system. Students, answer for these questions.